The M4 iPad Pro now has an even more powerful chip, new accessories, and an OLED display, which made a bigger difference than I expected. But overall, how does it stack up against Samsung's massive and super impressive Tab S9 Ultra? So once again, these are the biggest tablets that Apple and Samsung make. And when Samsung released the Tab S9 lineup, they finally did something that I've been wanting both brands to do for years. They offered all the same features in the different sizes of the Tab S9. So you didn't have to get a larger size tablet just to get the best features, and you could get exactly what worked for you. And the only noteworthy exception is RAM. And this year, Apple followed suit and did the same thing. So now you can get the same features and the same type of display in the 11 and 13-inch models of the iPad Pro, which is great because I know people who love the 11-inch form factor, but they ended up getting the larger M1 or M2 iPad Pro just because they wanted the better display. And while it's great to see that both brands adopted this approach, the one advantage that I'm still going to give Samsung is that you have 3 tablet sizes to choose from versus 2 with the iPad. Now, from a design standpoint, both tablets have flat edges and rounded corners, but the Tab S9 Ultra has slightly smaller bezels, which in some cases is good, but in some cases not so much. On the one hand, it does increase the screen to body ratio, but it also means that you're more likely to inadvertently activate the touchscreen with the inside of your thumb, which has happened to me when I'm gaming. Now, another major update to the iPad Pro is the thickness, which is now down to 5.1 millimeters versus 5.5 millimeters on the Tab S9 Ultra. Now, I absolutely love how thin both of these feel when I'm using them, and there's something super futuristic about it. But while you may or may not feel the difference in thickness between them, you will notice the weight. The iPad Pro is about 21% lighter, but it's of course a smaller tablet, so that's to be expected. Now, in terms of durability, both have been pretty solid, and I haven't had any issues with bending, but I also don't try to bend them, and most of the time they're in a case. And I like the fact that the Tab S9 Ultra and the S Pen have an IP68 rating, so I know I have protection from water and dust. Now, both tablets have 4 speakers, and these continue to be the 2 best sounding tablets that I've ever used. If you use the speakers on your tablets for media consumption or when you game, you'll be super happy with both. The Tab S9 Ultra is louder and sounds brighter, and the iPad Pro sounds a little bit fuller, so you'll have to go ahead and take your pick. Now, both tablets have USB-C ports for charging and connecting accessories. The one on the Tab S9 Ultra is 3.2, and on the iPad Pro, it's a more powerful Thunderbolt 4 port, which has faster transfer speeds. Now, if you're not really transferring a lot of files using these ports, then this isn't really an advantage for you. But if you regularly work with hundreds of photo or video files, or if you're editing off of an external drive, you'll definitely appreciate the faster transfer speed on the iPad Pro. Now, one feature that I love about the Tab S9 Ultra is that it has a micro SD card slot, so I can relatively inexpensively expand the internal storage by up to 1 terabyte, which saves me money. And I can use this storage for files, for photos, for videos, and for most apps. And we continue to see differences when we look at biometric authentication, where the iPad Pro uses Face ID and the Tab S9 Ultra offers a great under-display fingerprint sensor and a less secure facial recognition option. Now, all 3 worked well for me, so it comes down to whether you want the more secure facial biometric option from the iPad or the versatility of multiple options with the Tab S9 Ultra. Okay, so now let's talk about what so many people are curious about, the 2 OLED displays. Now, quickly looking at the specs, the iPad Pro has a 13-inch Ultra Retina XDR display with a resolution of 2752 by 2064, an aspect ratio of 4:3, 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate, and a pixel density of 264 pixels per inch. The Tab S9 Ultra has a larger 14.6-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X display with a resolution of 2960 by 1848, a 16:10 aspect ratio, 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate, and 239 pixels per inch. Now, these are incredible OLED displays, so it's not like you're going to be disappointed with either one. These are the biggest and best displays that each company offers in a tablet. But there are some important differences. Since both are OLED displays, we have per pixel control. We're getting incredible image quality and color, very dark blacks, and excellent contrast ratio. But Apple did something new with their display. display. They're actually using 2 stacked OLED layers, which they call tandem OLED. And it's shorter than the industry term for this, which is 2 stacked tandem structure OLED display. Now, this technology has been around for a few years now, and it's been mostly used in cars. Now, the advantage is that instead of one diode emitting light, Apple can light 2 diodes, which combine to create a brighter overall image. And the difference isn't just in brightness specs, which were already in favor of the iPad Pro for HDR content with 1600 nits peak brightness versus 930 on the Tab S9 Ultra. The M4 iPad Pro can now have 1000 nits of full screen sustained brightness for SDR content, which translate not just to watching content, but also to just using your home screen and all of your apps. And this is a noticeable difference, especially if you go outside. The iPad Pro display is also less reflective, which surprised me after my day in the life review of the S24 Ultra, because that phone had a much less reflective display than the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro. Now, when you're watching movies or videos, the aspect ratio of 16:10 on the Tab S9 Ultra is closer to the aspect ratio of the content, and on top of that, the display itself is larger, so you end up getting a much bigger image with smaller black bars at the top and the bottom. And if you zoom to fill to cover the screen on both devices, there's a much smaller crop on the Tab S9 Ultra. If you're using these tablets in portrait mode, you can see more content on the Tab S9 Ultra without having to scroll. And as far as width, they're about the same size, so you're not really being penalized with a narrower device when you're taking handwritten notes. And the Tab S9 Ultra does have a small notch, which houses the camera module on the long edge. Now, personally, it's not something that bothers me, just like it doesn't bother me on my MacBooks that have a notch. But if you think that it is going to bother you, then you can go ahead and get the smaller Tab S9 Plus. So I have to admit that I didn't expect the iPad Pro display to win me over. And ironically, it's the everyday use where I notice it the most, because really most of the time I'm not sitting there watching HDR content. Now, ultimately, the best part is that we're choosing between 2 amazing displays. Now, I would probably still choose the Tab S9 Ultra if I was watching a movie, because it's hard to beat the larger size. But in terms of actual image quality, brightness, and color accuracy, I'm going to give the edge to the iPad Pro, and it would definitely be my choice if I'm outside a lot or if I'm editing photos and videos. There's also a nano texture glass option for the iPad Pro, which is even better in challenging lighting environments. It's available in the 1 and 2 terabyte models, and it costs an additional $100. Now, one thing that I was super concerned about was the battery life of the iPad Pro, because it has to power and manage both OLED layers. But with the more efficient chip, I'm getting very similar screen on time to my M2 iPad Pro. Now, of course, how much screen on time you actually get from either tablet depends on what you do. But for me, the Tab S9 Ultra has lasted a bit longer during a typical day, and I'm working on a complete battery drain test, so go ahead and subscribe if you want to be notified when it's released. Now, when it comes to charging, the Tab S9 Ultra doesn't come with a charger, and with the iPad Pro, we're getting a 1-port 20-watt charger. Now, if you're like me, regardless of whether you're at home, traveling, or working, you always have more than one device to charge, which brings me to a few great accessories. With the Ugreen Nextnote X 65-watt charger, I can charge one device with up to 65 watts from a single USB-C port, or split it up and charge 3 separate devices at once. I can charge my M2 MacBook Air to over 50% in 30 minutes. It supports Samsung 45 watts fast charging 2.0, and I love how small it is. If I need more than that, then I can move up to the Nextnote X 160-watt charger, which uses the same new technology. I have 4 ports instead of 3, but now I'm getting up to 140 watts max from a single port, which can get my MacBook Pro to 50% in 27 minutes. When I travel, I use this 145-watt power bank. It has a 25,000 milliamp hour capacity, which is a ton. It has 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port, and I can get up to 100 watts from a single port. It has a digital display. I know exactly how much power is remaining, and with bidirectional fast charging, I can actually charge 2 devices while I'm recharging the power bank itself. And all 3 chargers offer comprehensive thermal protection, so I know my devices are safe. So check out the link in the description for a discount on Ugreen accessories, and thank you to Ugreen for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now, with both tablets, we're able to expand the functionality functionality by adding a keyboard case and a stylus. And there are some new accessories and some really important differences. Now, looking at keyboard options, the iPad Pro is compatible with Apple's Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro and also some excellent third-party options. The Tab S9 Ultra is compatible with 2 different versions of the book cover keyboard from Samsung, and of course you can always use an external Bluetooth keyboards with both tablets. Personally, I really like the feel of the keys on the new Magic Keyboard. I like that Apple added a row of function keys. It's thinner and lighter than the previous model, and the new trackpad has haptic feedback and is even better than the previous one. It also has a USB-C pass-through, so I can charge my iPad while still being able to connect accessories. The Tab S9 Ultra keyboards do a better job at securing the S Pen so it doesn't fall off when it's in my bag, and I have 2 different designs to choose from. Now, moving on to stylus options, the Tab S9 Ultra comes with a free S Pen. It pairs and charges wirelessly. It can be stored on the side or on the back of the Tab S9 Ultra, but it will only charge on the back. The iPad Pro is compatible with the USB-C version of the Apple Pencil, which costs $79, or the new Apple Pencil Pro, which pairs wirelessly, can be stored and charged on the side of the iPad, and costs $130. The Apple Pencil Pro also offers features like barrel roll, which is useful with rotating shaped pen and brush tools, a squeeze function, which can be used to open a palette for switching tools, line weights, and colors, and it has haptic feedback. Now, the majority of these features are going to mostly be important to artists or creators, at least at this point, but the one added feature that I love is that it has Find My, so I can easily find where I left it in the house. Now, the S Pen doesn't have to be charged to write or draw. It's just for the Bluetooth functions, whereas the Apple Pencil Pro does have to be charged just in order to work at all. Now, practically speaking, this isn't a very meaningful difference to me because the Apple Pencil Pro is always charging while it's being stored and the battery lasts forever, but it's still something that I wanted to mention. Now, you're able to assign a function to the button of the S Pen, which is similar to the Apple Pencil's double tap function, but the S Pen also has several Bluetooth functions, so you can use it to take pictures, control media playback, and for several other useful tasks. Now, with both stylus options, latency is super low, but the actual writing or drawing experience is very different. So the Apple Pencil has a firm tip, so it's a little harsher when it hits the glass, and it feels like you're writing or drawing on a single sheet of paper that's placed on a hard surface. The S Pen, on the other hand, has a softer tip, so when it hits the glass, it gives a little, and it feels more like you're writing on a full pad of paper where the pages compress as you press down. Now, one isn't objectively better than the other for every use case, and it's going to come down to which one feels better for you, so I hope that this description was helpful. Both tablets also have some useful multitasking capabilities. With the iPad Pro, you can have 2 apps open side by side in split view, you can have slide over windows, and you can have a pop-up window in the center. The Tab S9 Ultra allows you to have 3 apps open at the same time. You can resize each window to get the configuration that works best for you, and you can still have pop-up windows. You can also use both tablets as a secondary display for your laptop or desktop. Apple calls this feature Sidecar and Samsung calls it Second Screen. And regardless of which tablet you get, you should definitely use this feature. Now, an important advantage of the Tab S9 Ultra is that you can boot it in DeX mode, which gives you a desktop-like user interface with a taskbar, desktop icons, and floating windows. You can even pair a keyboard, mouse, and an external monitor for an extremely powerful dual display setup. Apple does have Stage Manager for the iPad Pro, which means that you can connect an external display without black bars on the left and the right. You can also extend your desktop to the external display and move apps and windows to it for, again, a true dual display setup. Now, it's great that Apple continues to expand the capabilities of the iPad. I love how fluid and seamless multitasking is. And at the same time, the Tab S9 Ultra has a larger display. You can have 3 tiled apps, and it has DeX. So it's still the more capable multitasking option, and hopefully Apple will have some exciting news for us really soon. Now, looking at the camera systems, the iPad has an ultra-wide 12 megapixel front-facing camera, and the Tab S9 Ultra has a 12 megapixel wide and a 12 megapixel ultra-wide. The iPad Pro can record at up to 1080p 60, and the Tab S9 Ultra can go up to 4K 60, and here's a quick sample. Here's a camera and microphone comparison of the M4 iPad Pro and the Tab S9 Ultra. This should give you a pretty good idea of the type of image quality that you're going to get and the type of audio quality that you should expect from each tablet. Now, this year, Apple actually moved their front-facing camera to the long edge. So now with both tablets, you're always properly framed and it looks like you're actually looking at the person that you're talking to. Now moving on to the rear-facing camera modules, the Tab S9 Ultra has a 13 megapixel wide and an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera versus a single 12 megapixel wide on the iPad Pro. Now both tablets have a flash, but the iPad Pro also includes a LiDAR scanner, which is great for autofocus in low light and for augmented reality apps. Now as far as configuration options, the iPad Pro comes with the M4 chip, and the models with 256 and 512 gigabytes of storage come with 8 gigs of RAM, and the 1 and 2 terabyte models come with 16 gigs of RAM. The Tab S9 Ultra comes with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip. The 256 and 512 gigabyte models come with 12 gigs of RAM, and the 1 terabyte model comes with 16 gigs of RAM. Now let's quickly look at benchmarks for those of you who are interested. And since the M2 was already the most powerful chip in any tablet, and the M4 is even more powerful and more efficient, it's no surprise that the iPad Pro comes out ahead for single-core performance, and that the gap continues to increase for multi-core performance and for GPU performance. For most things, this additional processing power is not super meaningful, at least right now. Both tablets feel super snappy and responsive, but of course I expect the iPad Pro to perform better for longer. The one area I'm super excited about is AI and how it's going to be able to take advantage of the new M4 chip. But when it comes to gaming, in terms of processing power, both tablets played games like PUBG, COD Mobile, and Genshin Impact without a problem. Playing PUBG, I could go to 90 FPS on both tablets with graphics set to smooth, or all the way to Ultra HD for graphics and Ultra for frame rates. Now, looking at gaming performance, I'm definitely going to give the edge to the iPad Pro. It won't really matter for less demanding games, but games are going to continue to evolve and continue to demand more and more resources, and there's no question that the iPad Pro is ahead. Now, depending on how you hold your tablet, this was one area where the larger Tab S9 Ultra could be a little too big and less comfortable to hold. If you play games with the tablet flat on a desk or on a pillow, then the Tab S9 Ultra is excellent, and I love the larger display. And of course, now you can select one of the smaller versions of either tablet if that works better for you. And when I want to play cloud-based games, I can pair my Xbox controller and then play any game that's available with the Xbox Game Pass app. Now in that context, I'm primarily using the tablet as a display, so I prefer the larger Tab S9 Ultra. Now, where things continue to shift back in favor of the iPad is when we look at apps and long-term support. There are lots of apps in the Galaxy Store, the Google Play Store, and the Apple App Store, so the majority of users are easily going to find what they need. Now, some creative-specific apps like Affinity Photo and Procreate are only available for the iPad, so if you absolutely need those two apps, go ahead and get the iPad Pro. Obviously, Final Cut Pro is only available for the iPad, but LumaFusion, which has historically been an iPad-only app, is available for Android, which is great news. And Notability is only available for the iPad, but GoodNotes has an Android version, and Samsung Notes is actually an outstanding option, and it comes included with the Tab S9 Ultra. Overall, I definitely give the edge to the iPad Pro here because essentially every iPad app is optimized for a tablet, whereas with the Tab S9 Ultra and other Android tablets, a lot of those apps are stretched out versions of the phone apps, and they look kind of funny on a larger tablet. Now, as far as operating system support, Apple has always provided excellent long-term support. And while Samsung offers 4 years of OS updates and 5 years of security updates, Apple still has the edge here if that's a priority for you. But what about the price? I'm going to use the prices off of the Apple and Samsung stores because they're standardized, but you can usually find better prices using the links in the description. Now, the base models of both tablets start out with 256 gigabytes, and the iPad Pro is more expensive at $1299 versus $1199 on the Tab S9 Ultra. Now, if you need the most internal storage, the iPad Pro goes all the way up to 2 terabytes, whereas the Tab S9 Ultra maxes out at 1 terabyte, but you can use a micro SD card for additional storage. Also remember that if you want a stylus, the S Pen is included with the price of the Tab S9 Ultra, and the Apple Pencil Pro will cost you an additional $130. The iPad Pro is also offered with 5G, and at least in the US, we don't have a 5G version of the Tab S9 Ultra, so if you need a cellular connection, you'll need to get the Tab S9 Plus. Now you should check out this comparison. You know what I always say, buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.